I'd like to introduce Mr. Joseph Parlato, who now a resident in the Utica area, but is from Dunkirk, New York, and has moved from Dunkirk to the Utica area. He is very well known in Dunkirk and in the Utica area. In Dunkirk, he is the former superintendent of schools in Dunkirk. So, I want to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to visit with you today, Joe. I'd like to ask you some questions. We're on the website here for UticaAMRadio.org, but because you grew up in Dunkirk, New York, I thought it'd be a good idea if we can get a little sense of what it was, your earliest recollections of amplitude modulation radio growing up in Dunkirk, New York.
Well, actually, we didn't have a local station in the city until maybe a year or two after the end of World War II, around 1946 or 47. Most of the radio programming that we were able to hear came from Buffalo, New York, where there were several stations with quite powerful signals. The most popular stations in Buffalo that we received in the Dunkirk-Fredonia area and northern Chautauqua County were station WBEN, WKBW, WGR. Those were the three most powerful stations. However, there were other smaller stations that catered to specific types of programming. Our local radio station, and I'm trying to remember the call letters, was established by a local businessman in Dunkirk. Everyone discouraged him from bothering or spending the money to build a radio station, but he did so. It was a very weak station, primarily, I would say, extending out to about 10 or 12 miles from the city. Over the years, it grew more powerful, and here again in the beginning there were the usual type of programming that were found in most similar small cities. There was music, high school sports.
What are your earliest recollections of AM radio in Buffalo?
Well, I would say probably I began to pay particular attention to radio programming coming out of Buffalo probably when I was in the 6th grade, and then on from there. My earliest recollections, as I recall, were, if I remember correctly now, it comes to mind, at the noon hour, when we had our breaks from school, there were short 15-minute programs on comic book characters. Like, I remember there was one on Little Orphan Annie, and I can't recall a couple of other ones.
Well, Superman was a big one.
Well, yeah, that came. Yeah. Superman and the Green Hornet, and then in the evening programs there were programs like I Love a Mystery.
Beautiful show.
Shadu the Magician. And then as I got older, we sort of switched over to the shows like Jack Benny and Eddie Cantor and Hallmark Hall of Fame, programs of that type, usually variety shows. And then by the time I got into like my senior year in high school, it would be what news programs there were, and the dance bands of that era that came from New York City and the summer places along the Jersey Shore that came to us from the Buffalo stations. But the local station there now has a pretty fair distance for a small radio station. And I like the way they covered the local sports as an adult. And of course, being a high school principal at one time, we were able to get our sports programs on radio, which created a great deal of interest in the community.
Now, here in Utica, they have a special cable channel for the Utica School District meetings, where the superintendent of schools, of course, gives a report to the board members. Did you do anything like that at all when you were in Dunkirk?
About the time I retired, which was around the early 80s, the television station requested that if they could provide the television coverage for our board meetings, and we allowed them to do so. So they are on currently. Yeah.
And how about some of the names that some big stars came out of Buffalo radio? Bob Smith with Howdy Doody.
Bob Smith with Howdy Doody was a fixture on WBEN. Jack Parr, I think I know he was in Buffalo. I'm not sure, but I think he was in WBEN. And I can't recall of anybody else, but I'm sure there were some other prominent people, or people who later became prominent in show business or the radio or TV that were in the Buffalo stations.
So actually here in Utica, we had only one AM station until after World War II. So Buffalo always had more than one radio station.
We had three major ones, and then, as I say, some smaller stations that specifically provided certain types of music or shows that were maybe directed toward ethnic groups. For example, there was the Polish program that was a fixture, the Italian program, because two of the great populations of Buffalo particularly, but also in Western New York, were the Polish and Italian populations.
Yeah, well, of course, Buffalo at that time was ranked pretty high as a radio market for advertising.
Oh, yes.
So what do you remember the ranking of Buffalo at that time?
Well, about the time of World War II, I recall Buffalo was supposed to have been the 13th largest city in the United States with a population of over 600,000. And of course today it's, I think the population of Buffalo has dropped to around 300,000. But typically of the sociological development of cities throughout the country, cities have, the center cities have lost population, and populations that actually were located in certain sections of various cities, like the east side in Buffalo was Polish, the west side was Italian. They're all on the outskirts now. Orchard Park, Cheektowaga, East Aurora, Amherst,
Of course, Buffalo, though, still is a major market, radio and TV market.
Oh, yes, right.
And of course, it has the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, Buffalo Bills.
Well, Joe, I want to thank you very much for granting us the time today to speak about that. I thought that the people here who visit our website would be very interested in hearing a little change of pace.
Yeah, that's
Of how
that's
AM
great.
radio, what kind of an influence it had on people who lived in Western New York at that time. So thank you very much.
I was glad to be part of it, Luke.